The best baseball card of 1979 is a two-pack of Speed and Enigma. Baseball cards are like people. Sometimes you hate the set from the first time you see it, and things never get any better. I'm looking at you, 1991 Fleer Baseball. Then there are those issues that leave you blah when you meet, that grow on you over the years though, or in a flash. Nice to see you again, 1990 Topps Baseball. Then there are those sets that click with you from the very start and make your pulse race every time you catch a glimpse. Hello, 1987 Topps Baseball, you gorgeous woody temptress. All of this is a long-winded way to say that I've always loved 1979 Topps Baseball card set. Part of it was simply that these pasteboards were exotic to me. I started collecting for real in 1983, and my oldest cards for a good while came from the three major 1981 sets. I'm also a sucker for history and nostalgia, and 1979 Topps tweaked those nerves too, courtesy of their all-time record holder subset. It was mind-blowing to thumb through a stack of Manny Trejo and Dan Spillner cards and slide back an Alfredo Griffin to find Ty Cobb or Cy Young staring back at me. The backs of those cards also delivered a solid statistical lecture on the historical hierarchy of the game. The aesthetics of the 1979 cards resonated with me too. The design is very simple, with a large player photo accented by a colored bar with a team name at the bottom of each card and the player name and position just above that. The Topps Baseball, absent from most card fronts from the era, ties those bottom elements together well and drives home the point that you're holding, well, baseball cards in your sweaty little mitts. Finally, Topps Shutterbugs apparently spent the summer of 1978 basking in the sunshine, because the player photos on the 1979 cards took a marked step towards the brighter side. They didn't quite reach the sunny levels of the 1983 Topps set, but they do leave you happier than before you saw them. A trip to the fairgrounds. I already knew all this as my parents and I made our way through the monthly flea market at the Indiana State Fairgrounds in early 1984, but I still wasn't prepared for what Beulah had in store for me. Beulah was an older widow who spent the heart of her golden years traveling the local show circuit with her sister, a fellow senior citizen. Beulah was also a Cincinnati Reds fan and my first regular card supplier. When I approached her table on that cold afternoon, the first thing I noticed was a shiny white shoebox sitting on the top of her flat display case. I craned my neck up to get a glimpse, but all I could see were 2 rows of brown stock cards. They were Topps, but I couldn't see any fronts or backs. "What are those?" I asked. Beulah looked over the top of her glasses at me, then followed my gaze to the cards and examined them through her thick lenses. "Oh, I just bought those today. 1979s mostly." "Oh, wow, old cards." I was mesmerized. After a few seconds of silence, Beulah sighed and pushed the box towards me. "Here, why don't you look through them and see if there's anything you like?" As it turned out, all of them were 1979 Topps cards, and to my preteen eyes, they were in perfect condition. And of course, I liked every single last one of them for all the reasons I listed previously. The best part was, there didn't really seem to be anything pulled except maybe a couple of super-duper stars. While the collection fell well short of a complete set, it did include guys like Dwight Evans and Don Baylor, as well as a slew of prospects and all-time record holders. As he was known to do, my dad helped me broker a deal, and I walked out of the horticulture building with the whole box under my arm. The car ride home was magical, as I poured through the relics of the past, and I managed to scope out most of them under the streetlights that flashed into the dark back seat. By the time we got home, I was itching to get my hands on my Beckett Yearly Price Guide and figure out just what sort of treasures I held. Back then, collectors were starting to get serious about cataloging the errors and variations, and it seemed as if every set had at least a couple that added the strong chase component to the hobby. Would the 1979 Topps prove the same? It didn't take me long to figure out that a few of my new 1979s booked for $1 or so each, and many others came in between 50 cents and $1. I had made a shrewd deal, thanks Dad, and bolstered my vintage collection immeasurably. And this last was more important to me, because I knew I wouldn't be parting with any of my new pets anytime soon. But what really caught my eye as I dragged my finger down that 1979 Topps listings in Beckett was card number 369 of Bump Wills. To paraphrase, the good book called out the card thusly: 367, Dave Skaggs, 6 cents. 368, Don Ussey, 6 cents. 369A, Bump Wills, Blue Jays, 35 cents. 369B, Bump Wills, Rangers, $3. 370, Dave Kingman, 6 cents. 371, Jeff Hawley, 6 cents. My first thought was, wow, that's a funny name, Bump. My second was, what exactly do Blue Jays and Rangers mean? And why is one so much more valuable than the other? My third was, I tore through my box of cards again, searching for this guy I'd never heard of, hoping against hope that he was there and that he was the Rangers version of himself, whatever that meant. Somewhere in the middle of a few hundred cards, the name jumped out at me like a lightning bolt in the night. Bump Wills. I pulled it from the stack and laid it on my bedroom carpet. Here's what it looked like. But I was confused. Was this Bump Wills Blue Jay or Bump Wills Ranger? The card itself said both. Even then I suspected it was the former, but the prospect of a score kept a glimmer of hope alive. $3 wasn't the world back then, but it was quite a bit for a baseball card. Finding hidden treasures of any sort was even more enticing. Something else struck me about my Wills card, though. The back told me he was small, at only 5'9". To me, in those days, small meant fast. And so did that name, Wills. The only other baseball Wills I knew about at the time was Maury Wills, who was the subject of my favorite fake card, the 1962 mock-up Topps did for the 1982 Kmart set. Could they be related? Could Bump be Maury's son? I was left to wonder for years, probably until the internet became a pervasive part of my day. By that time, I'd long since learned somehow that Maury Wills, Rangers, looked like this. So mine wasn't the good one, but it didn't matter. For all its quirky goodness and its foreshadowing of the error/variation craze to come in the 80s, and for its 2-for-1 bonus status, it's not just my favorite card from the set. The Topps Bump Wills duo is the best card issued in 1979.